Lantern Cove. Now that the Deep One's plan has been foiled, it is no longer a place of world-ending danger, but there's still plenty of wickedness to go around. The world has been saved by a small group of teenagers, but that doesn't mean their stories are over. They have met with tragedy, evil, monstrous creatures, and the darkness that lays within their own hearts. Can they escape Lantern Cove, or will its rotting heart hold on to them and drag them into darkness? It's time to find out. It falls to me at this time to provide a content warning. There is suicide in these epilogues and other main character death. Please be mindful of your own mental state when you listen.
After that final dream, Olive wakes up, still in the dark, still very early, and clammy. She hopes from a cold sweat, but now second guesses everything about herself. But she doesn't second guess one thing. She looks over at the pile of envelopes that are laid out ready to be given to her friends. One for Clark, one for Freya, one for Atticus, one for Chris, and one for Gus's family. Some envelopes are thicker than others, with gifts. Part of her wishes they could be victory gifts, and I guess they are, but really they're goodbye gifts. She puts on some clothes. She doesn't really know what she's putting on or care that much. Goes downstairs because she had gone to her room to sleep for the final time, really unable to be with the rest of the people after having to kill her mother and see what had been done to her father. But as she makes her way downstairs, she puts the pile of envelopes and a beaten up leather-bound notebook on the table with a big note that said Clark in big letters. Please, if you could do me a favor, ... And then she looks around the devastation of her destroyed childhood home and quietly slips out the door to her car. She doesn't even turn it on to start. She just puts it in neutral and lets it roll back into the empty streets. And once she feels more confident that she can start the car without any risk of waking up any of her friends that are in her basement, she drives. And she drives to a place that she had felt drawn to, and she didn't really understand why until now. She drives to the lighthouse, or as close to it as she can get. And she goes, and she sits, and she stares out at the cove. And for the first time in forever, she realizes that she can't hear the drums. And that gives her some peace. It makes it feel like it's actually done, except for one thing. At some point, Clark is going to wake up, see the letters, And probably won't read his right away. He's got his mother and sister to be worried about, his mother specifically. But once that letter is read, he'll know what has happened. And someday, when the drama dies down of the traumatic events, the many, many violent deaths happening around Lantern Cove, the horrifying death of Olive's dad, of the coach, and the gunshot wounds found on her mother, and the missing Olive Wright. A search will probably happen, and her body will be recovered on the beaches of the cove. And her friends will have their last words from her. And you'll hear them now. To Clark, thank you for your kindness, for your loyalty, for never giving up on us, for everything. Please, whatever you do, try not to lose that kindness. You are the best of us, and I hope you have the life to match. Love you, Olive. P.S. This is for Beauty. She more than earned some pampering. And inside his envelope is $400 of cash. To Freya, my Raven Queen. Don't lose your passion for calling out injustice. Keep fighting the good fight and keep living life to the fullest. But first, for me, get out of this town. Love you, Olive. P.S. Found these. Not like my mom will use them. And inside is a baggie of Xanax. To Atticus. No one has ever understood me like you did. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for every lunch we had together before our lives went to complete shit. Thank you for being my friend. Whatever you do next, know that you'll always have my support. But also, I hope you go back to New York and rule the fucking world. I love you. Olive. P.S. You have permission to loot our place. Who knows what shit my mom kept hidden. The letter for Gus is addressed to his family. To Nikki, Eric, and Nana. Sorry, I don't know Nana's name. I know this has been a really confusing time, and I wish I could give you answers. Mrs. Fairchild might be able to answer things better. She's the forensics expert with the police department, but she's honestly the best. There's no easy way to say this, but we're pretty sure Gus is gone. When I say they're in a better place, I'm not speaking metaphorically. They literally created their own dream world where they are pretty much totally limitless, and that kind of felt like what heaven might be for Gus. I'm so sorry. We tried so hard to bring them back. Olive Wright. And finally, to Chris. Hey, Captain. I have to make a confession now, especially when it doesn't really matter anymore. I have had a crush on you since 6th grade. You won't remember this. I don't think I even registered as a full person at the time, which I get. It was field day, and Caitlin Anderson was being a bitch, as usual, until you walked up and said, hey, be cool. Olive's nice. Before walking away like it was nothing. Thank you for being the kind of guy who sticks up for the losers without even thinking about it. I hope that one day you believe that you're worth more than the number of goals you make. I get that you need those goals to escape, but once you get out of here, Live your life however you want, not what your shithead dad says. I love you. Olive. P.S. Here's Dad's playbook. There are no better hands for them. And that's the end of Olive's story. Maybe it wasn't fair. Maybe it could have gone differently. But that's life.
I think the second I wake up is less of a slow awakening, more of a shock to the senses almost. Gasping for air. Like I've been submerged underwater for the past 2 minutes and just caught my breath. The first thing I do is look around the room, see who's around me, and hopefully find Angie. Is she awake?
She would still be asleep.
I go to wake her up.
Okay. It doesn't take much to wake her up. And when she wakes, she is crying.
It's okay. It's gonna be okay.
She doesn't say anything, but she can't stop shaking her head like she just can't believe that.
I look at her and get up. Let's go home. And I lend my hand out to her to help her up.
She takes your hand and picks her way through the sleeping people.
I assume I'm the last one to wake up, seeing as how I don't see Olive anywhere, and I, I don't see, or I don't know where Sophie Gus is, and I don't know about Atticus. He could still be on the beach for all I know. And yeah, that's everyone's. I don't think I see Freya, and to be honest, I don't think I'm looking too hard at the moment. I'm kind of in Big Brother mode, and
Yeah.
just first thing is get my sister home safe.
You take your sister home. Is your mother there?
I think in John Wick fashion, my mother is sitting at the dining table with a tampon directly against her forehead, trying to block the blood from a cut. And in that second of me opening the door, I just run to her
Yeah.
and hold her tight.
She holds you back real tight. Angie does not join. She seems like she doesn't feel like she's up for that, up for joining the hug.
I don't push it because I, on one hand, I understand what she's going through, but on another, I couldn't possibly understand the amount of what she's going through. And this has to be a lot. And if anything, I just give her a reassuring smile just to let her know that we're here.
Let's pan out a little bit time wise and talk about the next few days, the next few weeks, the next few months, the next few years. What happens with Clark in those times?
The next few days, he's probably spent passed out on his bed, not even as like if not knowledge like unknowledgeably, like just waking up, like going to sleep and then waking up, no, like being that exhausted, having just woken up and realized, oh shit, it's Tuesday, and goes to class. Think texts the group, letting them know that he's all right, and he goes through the next week in hopes to find everybody at school, and those who he can't, he's spending the entire weekend driving through the nearby state to try and catch up with everyone that he can to deliver the messages. And after receiving his, which he opens up his and gets the tune up as per requested, begrudgingly. He definitely left it in the note for about probably a solid 3 weeks before actually taking it and using it, just out of begrudging acceptance. The next few weeks, he tries to go about his life as it was before, but can't. He's got a bit of a wonder, and his mind just keeps on spanning on. It couldn't have just been one event. Thinking about what else might be out there. Writes about it. Probably keeps it to himself for a while. Tries to keep things going with Ashley. That definitely fizzles out but by like the end of senior year. They just decide to be friends because he realizes, yeah, I'm not too into Taylor Swift. And she knew that, but is what it is. He still keeps in contact as much as he can. Definitely doesn't hang out as much. Asks more questions to his mom about his dad and just what was he like around that time, and not trying to emulate it but trying to learn from it. Definitely asks his mom at some point what happened while he was on his side of the story, and finding out that she was being chased by men with guns definitely did not help him at all in his strife, and just thinking that, yeah, we should have. There's a part of him that still thinks that we should have kept this to ourselves and not have gone as spread out as they did, even though telling and giving out the information helped in the long run. There's just a spanning thought of, well, what if we didn't? What if we just kept on going and didn't talk about it? We probably wouldn't have gotten as far as we did, but further down the line, he learns that it's not too healthy to linger on that kind of thing. And he starts going out more, starts talking with people. Eventually, about he takes a gap year after high school and figures out whether or not he actually wants to go to college, and he does. Goes back, goes to NYU, lives there for a while, tries to get his footing in acting, and decides to write about what we went through and post it as fiction. with the ending tagline of "Based on true events," or is it? Check out the Rock blog at www.rawblog.go. I think he he still acts, but he starts writing more and starts actually writing scripts. And some point has a wife and a kid that he names Peter. He sees his sister every so often in her newly formed rock band that he fully supports. There are some times that he ponders on whether or not he would have fallen into his mother's footsteps and worked as a criminal investigator. He sets that to the side a lot, thinking about that. Instead, he prefers to write that kind of story. And yeah, keeps on living.
I think that is in itself a victory.
As a amazing man and talented man once said, Excelsior. And thank you for listening. It's been a hell of a journey.
At the end of all of everything that had happened over the span of really just a week, Chris made his way back home and was surprised and honestly a little disappointed to find his parents still there. Guess they just weren't important enough, not like the other parents. The malaise had really taken a hold of them, though, and in Chris's mind, that was honestly an improvement. At least they were too tired or too empty to make his life any more miserable. They were just zombies, husks of who they were, and maybe over time they would get better, but who knows? After the mass murders of the past week came to light and made their way inevitably to the news, losing all of that old money got Jess's family spooked. They made arrangements and left town. And luckily for Chris, it didn't take that much convincing of his parents to join her. It was clear this wasn't a safe town after all, and school was essentially canceled for the rest of the year while the whole town figured out what the hell to do about everything. And so Chris joined Jess and moved to a city, got more of that city education, stayed active, stayed a part of lacrosse, and used that to get into college. But after everything he had done, and after losing his friends, his found family, one after the other, it was hard to care about things anymore. And he and Jess had to really rely on each other a lot through that time. It was a sort of ping pong of feelings, right? Where one person's in a good mood and they're able to help with the other person who's still processing, and you take turns doing that, and you The two of them fire brigaded themselves one piece at a time, one step at a time, into some form of normalcy. Eventually, the two of them found boxing as a healthier outlet for their aggression, their feelings, their pent-up emotions, and had brief stints as professional boxers. Well, semi-professional, really, but enough to travel and see more of the world and start getting further away from high school, from their past, between the trauma and all of the change. The specifics got harder and harder to remember until they became manageable. The two of them were able to make a life. It wasn't a sort of happily ever after, though maybe compared to some of the others it was. But every year they made it down to Lantern Cove. They'd take Rebecca's smile out on the cove. They would say it was just to enjoy the family's lakeside vacation home that no one else really wanted to use anymore, but they both knew what the real reason was. It was to check on the town, to see if they could hear the drums, to be ready to play the hero again if they needed to. And maybe this time it wouldn't be kids made to be child soldiers, but adults who could take on the burden. After all, what kind of a goalie would he be if he didn't remain the team's last line of defense against whatever else was out there waiting for them?
I guess at first she's like not fully going to know if she feels like she has, like, if they've like succeeded, right? Like she knows that they won the fight, but like, does that actually stop everything? Is it actually over? It's not sure, but I think that she might just retreat at this point from everything, from all of this. She feels like she's like, well, fuck it. At this point, if there's still things to do, someone will find me, or I'll wake up in a dream. Fuck all of this. And she would probably go to a library, and she's just going to dive into, I guess, necromancy. Basically, she's going to spend a lot of time trying to bring Gus back, which means like following any sort of leads into learning. Like, she was already like trying to learn magic, right?
Right.
But she's basically just going to, like, she's going to stop going to school. She's basically going to abandon her relationship with her mother, and everyone else, and just fully dive into trying to find any semblance of reality in all of the magic that she can find, because she has this sensation, she has this sense of like, clearly it must exist. Clearly, like, given everything I've gone through, some of this must be real. And she's just going to spend all of her time basically doing that. She's going to eat, sleep, and try to find magic. Do you think that while she's doing that, while she's enveloped in that obsession, do you think that someone tries to reach her? Oh, for sure. I definitely think at least like her mom would. When she receives the letter from Olive, she definitely it just like sends her deeper into this. She's like, Olive has Olive is gone too. Maybe if I can bring her back too, then she'll make a different decision this time. Mm. Um, and there's also some amount of guilt of like, maybe if I'd obviously there's like, maybe if I had done things differently, then my friends wouldn't be dead. And there's a lot of like, I should have been the one doing the stupid things because mm, there's still like inkling of like, I'm not going to die, like I don't die. Right. If anything, it's stronger now because there's this combination of like, she's now seen people, like she knows that people around her have died, but that still doesn't prove to her that she can. You know? Yeah. And so the fact that she has lived and her friends haven't is like, maybe I was right. And like, part of her knows that that's bullshit, but it doesn't matter. But her mom definitely would try to reach her. And I think that would not go particularly well. I imagine that like her mom has spent like the last like 17 years just doing everything she can to keep Freya like happy and alive and doing well, and now and like has developed a good relationship with her, and now it's just all gone, and that is gonna be hard on both of them. There's probably a lot of arguing and just like a completely different relationship than they had before. Do you think that makes Freya more just retreat more? Yeah, for sure. There's this like after their relationship has changed enough, it becomes this like negative feedback loop of like, well, even that relationship's gone now, so what's the point in socializing with anyone? Time goes by, and give me a roll, give me a lore roll. Oh my god. Okay. That's an average. Average. Yeah, I got a -2 on the dice. So, I think that what that is telling us is that Freya investigates and throws herself into any path that can take her down the possibility of contact with what lies beyond. And I think that she finds nothing that works, nothing that is real. Only tales. They're folk tales, but they don't seem to add up to reality. At some point, without shifting goal, she would shift direction. Because like she's like going in trying to be like, I'm going to be a necromancer. You know, I'm going to bring people back to life. At some point, she's going to switch directions and be like, okay, well, I need to learn how to do magic at all before I can learn how to do powerful necromantic magic, you know? Yeah. So I think the way that she's going to pivot to through art. She's gonna start just writing poetry. She used to be like she was she never like did any poetry. She never like write it because she didn't like the writing process. She was just like always stuck, and when it came out terrible. Um, but she's just going to start writing it and like sitting there and just be willing to just sit and look at an empty page for a whole day. And eventually she starts being able to actually write here and there, and it gets better over time, as things do, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and she's got this sense of like art is a form of magic in some ways, and like poetry is specifically like emotional magic, and like this it seems very likely to her that this is some sort of entry point to magic, or even if not directly, it will teach her something that she needs to know for to do magic. I think that starts to, like, after doing that for a long time, I think that starts to heal her a little bit. She's able to get her emotions out of her somehow, and starts to help her repair her relationship with her mom a little bit, because she is like writing while eating, or like just has like, and we'll just like leave paper around with half-written poems and such, and so her mom starts getting to see fragments of what's going on. This takes a long time. I guess I'm curious if that does lead her to any form of magic other than just writing, like other than just getting it on the page, you know?
The conceit of this world is that reality is consciousness, so it makes sense that that would possibly lead to something. Would you like to do something about that? Would you like to?
Yeah, I guess she would start to understand more about the tales that she had read, like even like not necessarily like the like bringing people back to life thing, but like understanding how like the differences between what is written and what might have actually happened. Because like it's very easy to be like, well, this is what it says is happening, and therefore if I just replicate that, then clearly that will do what it happened.
Sure.
Um, but there's always the like, there's no like perfect copy of a story. Um, and so starting to understand like reality is consciousness. If I have more control over my consciousness and I have more control over reality, how can I apply that understanding to how these stories that I read go? And I think that success isn't going to look like finding out how to bring her back her friends, but it is going to look like becoming like becoming healthier, rebuilding her relationship with her mom, learning how to like control herself and control her surroundings, and learning how to, and eventually learning, like figuring out that her current goal won't work, and finding a new goal of making sure, like helping other people not lose the ones they care about. Basically becoming like this, like slowly leaning into like Witch in the Woods is friends with the birds, uh has like a little like apothecary style thing, like writes poetry, very very like
becoming like mostly secluded, but still having a few strong relationships. And I think this is like the very long term, you know. But
Yeah,
yeah, that is what long term success will look like for her.
it's wonderful. And I think that uh, that as that comes into your life, and you find that connection to these mythological sources of power, uh, that you had read about, and begin to understand the way that you have to get awareness of and control of your own consciousness in order to touch onto other layers of consciousness, and that helps you to lead yourself onto a better path, I think.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have touched other worlds through writing, you find, well, the things you've written about have been your friends, you know, and the way that they made you feel, and the things that you felt like you've lost, and things that you felt like you've gained, and all of that feels like a part of you now,
Mm.
because of the way that you have written it into your consciousness.
Mhm.
And so, in a way, they do live on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think she would probably start just like at this point, knowing that she can't actually bring them back, she would start like trying to like the next step, like her next step after accepting that she can't like bring them back properly is trying to connect to Gus, like not necessarily like actually like talk to him, but feel that his consciousness still exists, whether it is like where like in his weird little heaven box, uh, feel that it still exists there, and like not necessarily try to actually like get there and like be with him like in a dream or whatever, but like be able to maybe pass like mental like mental index cards back and forth sometimes, you know. I guess like writing a letter, you know, like not trying to like open a long-term dialogue, not trying to like have a like find him and like reach him and like talk to him, like not trying to like have him as a voice in their head, but just like writing a letter and getting it to him and then being able to and receive a letter, and like the letter is like not going to be like might be a physical object for her to write, but then maybe like ritualistically burning it and trying to send it to him if she can find that he exists, trying to get that information in a little packet to him.
yeah, you can absolutely do that. You can write down the things that you want to say and the things that you want to ask, and you can burn it and feel as though you have touched it and made this communication. Um, and you're able to feel that it has been received and get some response back.
I think that would be when she gets the response back, she would cry. And I think that would like release all of this like I need to get these things done. Like I need to bring them back. It would all like release in that moment and be just like I I'm not going to be able to do more than what I have done, but at least now I can talk to them. Like she'd like cry and go and like hug her mom and have like just this whole like this huge weight inside her lift in that moment, you know. And that allows her to stop pushing so hard for that specific goal and allows her to realize that she needs to do something else as well and start trying to learn how to like remedies and things that will help other people and like trying to become like apothecary and trying to keep people healthy and alive, especially things that are like not well treated in the medical system.
Mm.
Like try to learn how to be someone that people can come to when they need something and the medical system is failing them, you know. And she would like start going outside again, go spend some time alone in the forest, with the birds and the creatures. And she wouldn't really know how to like reintegrate with humans. So she would probably like just try to get her social like suddenly like realizing that has social needs that have just been completely ignored for so long. And so she would like try to start getting those social needs met by the birds. Also, like she would probably see how like start trying to poke around and see if there's any sort of like afterlife for people who aren't Gus. Basically, like see if there is a way to contact other people who have died. Um and like try like offer she wants to like help other people get like closure without being a scam, you know?
She becomes a real medium.
Yeah, basically. She's like wants to help other people feel that relief, you know? And she doesn't really feel like she can like do much else for people other than like or like she like this is like the way that she can interact with other humans is like I can help you with these things. I think like her relationship with her mom would be like damaged for a while, but it would start to heal. Um, she would probably the first people that she would probably try to contact that weren't Gus would be whoever her mom asked for.
Mm.
And from there, it mostly is just like her getting better and better at those sorts of skills and trying to just get as much of her social needs met from her mom and the birds. Maybe connect with some people who come in for questions for a loved one or whatever. Um, try to collect maybe two or three people who she feels like she's close with. And if anyone else this from this journey when we went through together ever shows up, she would be happy to connect with them. She would be like before she met with Gus, she would have been like, fuck off, leave me alone.
Yeah.
But after that and after some healing, she would be open. Like she's not really gonna go looking for any of them because
Right.
but she'd be. I think she would be happy to reconnect with them if they showed up. And she would be. I think the one thing she would do Does she connect with Olive? Does she successfully like talk to Olive at all?
Let me think. Let me roll.
Mm.
No, she does not get a hold of Olive.
Yeah, I kind of figured that would be the case. All right. Well, she probably like a month after she connects with Gus, she's like, "Fuck, I need to tell the others." And she will like write a letter to each of them that's basically just says, Gus still exists. I talked to him. If you have anything you want to say to them, you can let me know. She will do some research to find like where everyone is before sending them, obviously. But yeah, so she'll send those letters out, and then yeah, I think that's just doing that. It was been it's been fun. I hope that everything feels resolved in a way that everyone is happy with.
It's mid-August, 8 p.m. The state wrestling tournament has just ended. A couple hours prior, Ted Vinton stands in the parking lot with his coach, being consoled and told, "Hey kid, even making it to state as a sophomore is a good start. You got the whole world ahead of you. Don't worry about not placing. Even making it's a huge honor." Ted nods his head, shrugs, says, "Yeah, I just really thought I could do more. My family expects a lot, you know." Coach, giving a knowing look, says, "Yeah, I know, especially with the tragedy that struck your family. We all could have hoped for a little bit better of an outcome today, but like I said, kid, you got all the time in the world to make them proud. And now they're looking down on you, and they are." Ted kind of shrugs, says, "Yeah, I guess," and says to his coach, "Thanks for everything. I'll see you on Monday." And takes his participation ribbon and his new state patch that he'll take this weekend with the temporary extended family he's staying with to go get his patch sewn onto his Letterman. And as he gets into his 1967 Mustang hatchback, suddenly the lights go out. Atticus is in the circles, a chair in the Edinburgh house. It's been closed off due to sham investigations that'll soon be closed with a patsy or no clear villains. And soon all that's happened to Lantern Cove will be pushed back to the recesses, back under the rug, waiting to rear its head in another however many years when the stars align. But Atticus finds this a suitable place for what business he has left. And as Ashley Edinburgh opens her eyes and comes to, she sees the last face she'll ever see. And as Atticus walks around, after questioning and pulling on the string and getting to the next person he needs to eliminate, he thinks to himself, God, I wish this was all over those weeks ago. And he thinks back to the night when he woke up after the last battle. And he thinks back to how easy it would have been to just swim out into the Atlantic Ocean until his arms gave out. He couldn't do it anymore. And that sweet cold made his numb body feel that slight bit of warmth before death took him. And instead, as he went to take his clothes off, he remembered the words he told Clark's sister. And he knew that he'd be the biggest hypocrite. And that young girl didn't deserve any more tragedy in her life. And he remembered that there was still tons and tons of the sick, twisted individuals who started all this. The reason his friend Olive's parents were dead. The reason his parents were dead. The reason Gus is trapped in another dimension. The reason the entire town will never be the same. And he realizes in this moment that there's just a little bit of good left he has to do. And using the contents of the sheriff's safe, Atticus goes on a mission. And one by one, like a hunter at the edge of a riverbank spearfishing, plucks the deep ones one by one from the town of Lantern Cove. And one day, while he is in the cave underneath the old Vinton Lighthouse, it's been permanently closed down now for months. Atticus is keeping the ritual. He's circling his guest. He's asking the questions. And just as they give up another name, the cave echoes with a loud bang. And what first feels like nothing feels red hot as it spreads through his chest, and Atticus looks down and sees the black sweater of his with a small hole. And then there's a second sound and a third. And before he knows it, Atticus is on the floor. And everything's a haze. And the heat is spreading. And the fluid is spreading over his body. And fear begins to flood his mind as he wonders, what's next? Did he do enough? Did he keep his friends safe? He still had stuff to do. There were still more people in town. How could any of them be safe anymore? He failed. He failed just like he did months ago. He failed just like he did years ago. He failed just like he always does. And as the world begins to fade and that heat turns to cold, Atticus hears a few words that give him this young sad boy some solace before he passes. As the Gilman that was in the cave turns to the others and says, God, you took your time. And they said, yeah, it's trickier to get down to this cave than we thought. The tracking device worked the way we wanted it to, though, so as the new arrivals look at the young boy bleeding out as the light fades from his eyes, they say it was just a kid. And the Gilman turns, yeah, I guess it's the last one. he didn't seem to be working with anybody. No, I never saw anybody else when he picked me up. Never saw anybody else. He never contacted anyone. He just kept asking, who else? Who else? Who else? And those are the last words that Atticus hears as a small smile flits across his face and his eyes close for the last time.
Sophie Scott goes back to work. She works at Lantern High as a high school counselor for a semester until she realizes she's really bad at this job. She can see objective truths but has no tact. It's different piloting. It's kind of like driving a manual car when all you've ever drove is automatic. Before, when she was Sophie, it was like playing with a sock puppet. Easy. Now it is full focus. Now it is everything. And Sophie thinks to herself. She is one. They are one. The thoughts, the voices, they've made a singular chorus in her head, and everything in her being is screaming to explore, to be free. It takes a little bit, but in about a year's time after she quits Lantern Cove, Sophie joins a biker gang, buys a Harley, gets a leather jacket, and rides down the open road with about 10 or 12 different hardened riders, all about in their 40s or 50s. She'll do that for a good 5 years, maybe even more, but these people, they're not like her. They are hardened. They're not trying to explore every aspect of being human. It's not new to them. And to interact with children just, was frustrating. So there's this period where Sophie Scott is alone, wholly alone. And she thinks back to Clark's mom about how she was alone. She had her kids, but everything was trying to protect people. Everything. And she wants her everything to be free, but to be free and alone, that's hard. So she does some research. And I don't know how long this takes, but I'm willing to think it takes another 50 years. She scrounges around for that ritual, that thing that those deep ones used to call her. And their shit was buried down in a lot of code and personal, secret messages. So compiling everything, maybe even going to Olive to get help, though when she figures out about Olive, I don't know how she feels about that. I think that's one of those things that she does that is wholly human without even trying, is pushing those feelings down because they don't matter right now. To think about those feelings would be lonesome. But I think Sophie, with an abundance of time, tenacity, and the ability to teleport, probably finds some way to at least try and perform this ritual again. I think she gets it all set up. But this time, I don't think she wants to call something to eat everyone. Absolutely not. She needs a friend. There was one person that always saw her when she was unable to see herself. And she was so mad at him. So mad at him for so long, but ultimately, Gus gave her a gift. And just like Sophie was out there, and just like Sophie was called back, there is a trueness to an eternal consciousness, to a vast multitude of universes. It might be a small chance, but betting on a small chance is the gift of humanity that Gus gave Sophie Scott. And I think there's a little guilt for maybe incinerating his body. But I think Sophie Scott starts the ritual. I don't want to go into too many details, but I think eventually something happens. And whether that something is Gus Gabarra coming back into Lantern Cove or not, I think that's a whole nother story to tell. But Sophie Scott is now wonderfully human.